So we're here in part to discuss this video we did about why Facebook pretends to be racist.
Racial discrimination.
You have ruined the lives of many people, discriminated against them.
And every time Facebook's leaders are confronted about it, they do this.
Congresswoman, I agree that we need to work on diversity.
I agree that we need to work on diversity.
And why is it that they won't talk about the true underlying reason and instead cop to these false charges of racism? It's like, we're not going to talk about the pipeline problem. We're all just going to act like there is some institutional racism ghost in the machine that nobody can touch or taste or smell, but it's always there, and that explains anything in terms of lack of diversity. So you're saying you think it's mostly because if you talk about the pipeline problem, they're going to be accused of like scientific racism?
They're going to be treated like me. You cannot say we don't have nearly enough blacks coming through the pipeline to fill anything approaching their proportion of the population. That a middle-level manager, let alone a senior manager, says, you know, let's face it, there's nothing we can do as a company to come up with any significant number of blacks that can do the kind of work we want to do. And it's really sad. I wish we could do something about it, but we can't.
Right.
If they said that, they would not have been playing the game within the company, and people out thereafter would begin to think that maybe, what's his name over there? Maybe a closet racist. Yeah. They have also been trying to increase their representation of minorities, especially blacks, for years. And they have been in better positions than almost any other companies in the country in terms of the prestige they can offer, the salaries they can offer, and all the rest. They know that there just aren't people who can do this kind of work out there in enough numbers, and they are very embarrassed to say that. Most of the people who run these companies are part of the Silicon Valley culture. They are really, really smart people who, insofar as they think about politics at all, subscribe to the standard progressive. I don't even want to dignify it with philosophy because I don't think they thought that deeply about it. You know, they just go with the flow.
But your sense is for wokeness, you think we might be misdiagnosing it as them embracing some specific, coherent, concrete political project. It is more of a fashion. It's like a bell bottoms. You know, it's like this is the thing that is expected for them to don, and so they don it as a marketing scheme. But I'd love for you to go into, at least, you know, from your vantage point, the dawning of the fashionable woke language doesn't actually result in them changing much in terms of the internal workings of their companies.
No, what big tech does requires really, really smart people. They know that. People who are just merely fairly smart can't do that stuff. They know that.
And I guess you would say it has to be a fashion because they're never going to implement DEI, woke orthodoxy in the core internal mechanics of the company because that would threaten the profits of the company. Right?
Yeah.
They're not actually going to do something that risks capital. I mean, they'll spend a couple $1 million on some floozy ad campaign, but they're not actually going to compromise the ability to make the microchips.
Yes,
right?
and you have that's a much bigger immediate threat to the tech companies than it is to Procter & Gamble. Because, and I'm not dissing Procter & Gamble's products or anything else, they are not operating at a level of technical and intellectual complexity that Google and Microsoft and Apple are. And the competition among big tech, talk about intense. They're always trying to poach away each other's stars.
Right.
And no, they will. I don't think they're going to compromise at all in the integrity of the staffs that are doing the real work. The problem with wokeness is it is successfully doing a great deal of damage to the body politic. But look, you get the University of California system to drop the SAT within months after they had a very expensive task force concluding that actually the SAT is our best way of identifying talent among disadvantaged kids. A few months after that study comes out, which was a very hard-headed, thorough study, they drop the SAT. They drop the vehicle that's the best way to identify talent among the disadvantaged. That's an effect of wokeness. Aggressive affirmative action makes behaving in a racist way rational. Because of the difference. Look, suppose that a company is hiring engineers, and it wants to hire more black engineers, and to do so it ends up with a population of black engineers that have 6 IQ points lower mean IQ than white engineers. That's not very much. That's less than half standard deviation, to use the statistical term. And it's not nothing, but it's not going to create a huge difference in job performance. And there'll be a lot of variation. A lot of black employees will be better than the average white employees. But that's not what's happened. With aggressive affirmative action, you end up with differences in some important professions. Nursing, K-12 teachers, not sure, engineering too. It's closer to 15, 12 to 15 IQ points. There you're looking at a big difference. And so let me put it very candidly about what is going through people's minds rationally. If the only information I have about the K-12 teachers in my child's elementary school is the color of their skin, and I know nothing about, I have no other information about how good they are as teachers, I am behaving rationally to see if my daughter can be put into the math class that's taught by the white teacher instead of the black teacher. I am behaving rationally. If I am choosing a physician and the only information I have is the color of the skin, I rationally first will choose the Asian doctor, and then I'll choose the white doctor, and then I will choose the black doctor. And am I certain to have made the right decision? Absolutely not. But what aggressive affirmative action does is mean if I'm trying to play the odds that I get the best physician or the best teacher, I choose on the basis of race. That's what I would call a real downside to aggressive affirmative action. And we've been living with that for years and years now.
No kidding. Making racism rational a big, in the minus column. That's in the minus column.
That is in the minus column, big time. This could go away within a year or two if we had aggressive, equal treatment of job applicants. If we said we are going to do our damnedest to use the very best ways we can find of establishing the credentials of people to do the job that we want them to do, and we are going to, I know this is hate speech, use a colorblind approach to doing this. We are going to do our very best to ignore the existence of race and assess people as individuals. A company that did that aggressively, within a couple of years, it would be taken for granted when you showed up for your first day of work. You were chosen the same way everybody else is. You had to jump through the same hoops, and there's no reason to think that you're any different from the rest of us in your abilities.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
What was the single worst year of your life?
The truth is that there were a number of years when my personal life was not happy, but my professional life was had a lot of satisfactions, and so, some bad, some good.
Yeah.
And I have had, in my subsequent career, periods like after the bell curve, which were not fun. But for 40 years, I've been in a wonderful marriage. And so even at the down times of my career, and I've had a lot of up times in my career, So I said, well, there isn't a single worst year. And then all at once I had the answer to the question. My worst year is yet to come. And that worst year is going to be when either Catherine or I die. It'll definitely be the worst year for me if I survive Catherine.
Yeah.
But even if I go first, my last thought is going to be how awful this is going to be for her. So the worst year is yet to come. And if you can reach the age of 78 and say that you can't pick out a worst year,
That's a win, actually.
You've already won.
It's
yeah.
it's almost incomprehensibly sad, and also the best answer possible. It's like that's actually that means you're doing well.
That means you're doing
well.
One of the ambitions of people who go into marriage that I think that they ought to realize is a wonderful ambition is to grow old together, because growing old together in a happy marriage is just as good as you hoped it would be, except that the till death do us part business can't be evaded.